Mr. Inch of Progress, what are you doing today? Well, in my shower, I had a little problem. The hot water was not working. And so I had to do a little troubleshooting. And so I figured out my tankless water heating was not working properly. One of the elements I thought was burned out, but I wasn't going to be able to confirm that until I opened everything up and went inside of it, which is what I'm doing right here. Just removing the knob, removing the cover, just so I can see the inner components. And the components are fairly simple. You've got an intake tube on one side, and then you have an outgoing tube right there, which is the hot side, and that's your water valve right there. That disconnects the water or stops the water from flowing in. That is the replacement element. And so that has to go inside of the cylinder to the left, the hot side, and that's the job for the day. Fairly simple and straightforward when you slow things down and just think about it. So the first thing I had to do was just remove it from the wall so I can get access to it. I had to get a wrench in there on top of the cylinder so I could go ahead and torque it off. And you'll see that there's some wires that you have to disconnect from the cylinder itself, so you can actually begin to put a wrench on there and start to torque on it and pull it out. And that's what I'm doing right here. Just getting those wires ready. So here I finished pulling out the cylinder. You unscrew the top. You need a medium-sized crescent wrench to do it here, but you pull it out. As you can see, it's not really scaled over that bad, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't working properly. So I'm not sure if it was getting the right charge to it, but as far as the voltage on the top of that bad one, it just was not reading that it was getting the proper amount of voltage to work. So here I am working with the adjustment screws on top, pulling those off, and once I get those off, I can slide that back in there and reattach the power wires that were on there before. And it's not a very difficult process. You know, things are kind of small in there. Wires are fragile, but you have to be careful as to not break anything. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. And just a reminder, when you're working on something like this, which has a lot of power going to it, make sure you turn off your breakers so there's absolutely zero power going to the unit while you're working on it. And again, I'm just your weekend DIY person who, I'm not a professional plumber or anything like that, so I take precaution. But this is fairly straightforward, and hopefully it'll fix the problem. Just reassembling things right here. I'm putting things back on exactly the way they came off. You know, I try not to scatter my parts everywhere. I keep things close so I know I can put them right back on. And for this job, all I needed was a crescent wrench, a couple of screwdrivers, and a small pipe wrench, and that's it. That's all I needed for this job. Now that I got that back in there, I can put that back on the wall and move towards just a sample of, I'll turn the power back on and run water right through it and see if it's working properly. And that's what I did off camera. And so everything seemed to be working well in the shower. And now it's time to reassemble the unit. And so that right there is the digital board that gives you your temperature readings, and that had to come off. So I'm putting that back on, And again, just using a screwdriver. Very simple and straightforward. Only had, I believe, 2 screws on top, and they go right in there quickly. And at this point, you make sure everything looks good, buttoned up, and you put your cover back on it. And the cover has 2 screws on the bottom, just 2. The top kind of snaps in. And there's 2 screws that go on the bottom. Kind of difficult to get to, but with the right size screwdriver, you can put those in there. And that's basically it. That was the project for the day, for the afternoon, for the day. And went fairly quickly. Took me about an hour and a half to do it, and then I'm off to the next project. Everything worked well.